Hi everybody, welcome to the Manifold channel. Today we're going to take a look at how to create legends, a new feature in Manifold that's just appeared in the last build. And it's so new there isn't even any documentation for it quite yet in the user manual. So we're going to do this video just to tide us over for a week or two until documentation gets written. Like I say, it's an experimental feature, so let's see how to create legends. We're going to create a legend for this map right here. And this map right here is from the National Map of the United States. If we take a look at the style, we can see that it uses a thematic format. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different categories of points. They each have their own different icon. It shows cemeteries, educational institutions, government centers, medical, police, and fire, and so on. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a map. We've created a map, and we're going to create a layout. And the layout that we're going to create is going to look like this. And the layout has a map element here with a border around it, and has an illustration here, a photograph of the border. And most important, it has this legend, which was automatically created for us. Now, legends are a brand new feature. They're experimental. They take some tinker time. But if you want to play around with these and contribute to how they should evolve, this video will show you how to do it. So let's get right to it. One of the quickest ways of creating a legend for a map is to click File, Print Preview, because the print preview that it shows you is the automatic legend that it'll build. So right here we have a legend. If we like, we can click Edit, Save as layout, save as layout, and that creates a layout. Here's let's close this map and let's double click open layout number 2. So we're now going to work with this layout. We have a layout component we can work with. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to change the page format. Since this is for something in the United States, we're using letter size paper. Click at the landscape, click OK, and now I'm going to alt click on this layout frame, and I'm going to move it here, and it'll snap into position. And now I'll resize it a little bit, and I'll resize it a little bit to give us room to work with other elements, other frames in the layout. And there we've just resized it right there. First thing I'm going to do is let's put a quick border around it. Let's make that border black, and let's make that border factor of 2 thickness and padding of 4. And we'll later learn what all these numbers like padding of 4 and all that stuff do. But for now, let's focus on the legend. So job 1 is to create a legend for this thing, and that's easy to do. Here in the cursor mode, we choose Create Legend. And this gives us the legend dialog. We're going to call the new caption National Map Structures. I want a base frame, that's a background frame. I want it to ignore unused geometry types, so it's not going to create any legend entries for areas or lines because this structure's drawing only has points in it. And I don't want Bing, because Bing is understood. And then I click Create Legend, and there it is. We just created that legend right there. To move this legend around, by default it creates the legend for whatever is in that frame. Let's click on the Layers pane here. And the first thing we learn when working with legends in an experimental way is we want to work with the Layers pane. We want to keep the Layers pane open. And one way to keep it open is to Control-click that tab so the Layers pane appears here in a second layer in the Panes panel, like this underneath the project in the Contents pane. If you're working with a full-sized window display and not just one that's small enough to fit into YouTube, there's plenty of room here on the right-hand side of your monitor to do that. Or if you like, you can shift-click to undock the Layers pane completely. And shift-click again, it docks one more time, and let's do that. Let's leave it undocked so that we can move back and forth here to the Contents pane. All right, first thing I want to do is point out how all this stuff is related. A legend is just a bunch of frames that are arranged within folders. The folder structure is used to control what they do. So if I want the entire legend up here as the top level folder, I just Control-click that, and you can see the whole thing has been selected within it. Control-click it again, and the whole thing has been unselected. If I click this folder off, everything within that folder, all the subfolder, goes off too. If I click that on, it goes back on. So let's Control-click this to select everything, and then here I will Alt-click any one of the frames, for example that frame right there, and now when I drag and drop any one of the selected frames, all the selected frames will move with it. So I can move that here, and it'll move right there. It'll move like that, so everything will move together. That's the first step in convenience when you work with all these things as folders. The second thing I can do here is if I want to select a particular individual element, for example the background frame, which is this one right here, I can right-click on it and choose Active. And that's the same as alt-clicking just that one. That's a convenient way of alt-clicking something when a whole lot of things are busy together, and that way I can resize this frame however I like. And I'm going to make it a nice big frame to keep it out of the way while I work with this. The other thing that we're going to learn is that when we're working with this, what is in effect an alpha or beta version of Legends, is that all the alpha testers say they don't like the way the snapping works in terms of docking different elements together. It tends to be a little bit too finicky, so that's going to get remedied. That's going to get changed. And you can see here, as part of the moving, we accidentally moved part of the post office frame as well. That kind of got out of alignment. So that's all going to change. And one of the ways of dealing with snapping that we don't want to have happen is to zoom in so it has less effect. And by the way, another way to select is Control, click, and drag, just the way it works in the map. So to select everything, and all the usual moves for selection also work. Let's turn off this background frame because we're not going to use it. I don't want it to get in the way. So let's Control, select those. Notice we just selected those which are visible. This one didn't participate in the selection because it's not visible. And now I can move around various elements. For example, Alt-click that and move it around. And let's individually start working with these things. I can choose Edit, Select None, so all the selection commands work the way you'd expect them to work. With just this one active, picked, I can move it around like that, and I can change the size of it by using this Position tab. For example, let's say I want it to be 10 points high. I click that, and down here there's a button that says Update Record. And we're going to be using that frequently, so I'll leave that in view. You have to make changes here stick, you click Update Record. That's another thing a lot of the alpha testers didn't like. A lot of them felt that if you change this and you click Enter, it should happen right away. What we're going to do now is we're going to delete some of these frames that we don't need. So let's get rid of the structures in the category, and I can choose Edit, Delete up here, or I can choose the Delete button down here, same thing. So now we've deleted those things we don't want. Now what we want to do is each one of these individual frames here, we want to Alt-click, and then we want to change the size of them to 10. Now it would be great if we could just select them all at one, and then when you change one, they all changed. That's not working quite yet. That'll happen, but it's not there yet. And let's put this guy right up here in position, right about there. And I'm going to individually alter the size of all these, and then move them up. What I don't like, and again, what a lot of the alpha testers didn't like, is that the system tries to help you here. It's trying to more aggressively snap. You put all these in location, so when you're moving it and you don't get it quite close, get it quite right, it sometimes will change this number to be a slightly different number than 10 because it's trying to snap it into position the way it thought you wanted it to be. And of course, it's best if it doesn't do what you thought you want it to be, but it does what you tell it to be. Like I say, that's one of the elements that's going to change, one of the features that'll change. And what I encourage everybody to do who's into Legends is to mess about with this. I realize it's it's a fair amount of tinkering right now, but that's not for long. I'm just going to move this farther out of the way down here. That's not for long, and if you want to contribute to making this better, you can see how it works. Even with this little bit of tinker time that's required, you can make Legends a lot quicker using this new system than you could when you had to do everything just absolutely fully manually. Okay, let's position that right there. The other thing that would be nice, of course, is if the system had a an automatic align, so just automatically align everything. That tool will be coming. There's well, maybe not hundreds of features, but certainly many dozens of features planned for Legends that are going to improve quality of life, and that'll fully automate it. There, you can see how it just snapped. So when it snapped into position, when I didn't do that quite right with the snap, it changed it to 9.89 points instead of 10. I want to keep it as an even point 10 as possible. Right there, about right. Okay, good enough. And let's do this last one. Let's change that to position size of 10. Bear with me when I'm doing all this because I want to give you as real life an example as possible. Legends do involve some tinker time. They end up quite pretty all the same, despite the tinker time that's involved. Here, let's stock this about there. Now what I want to do is I want to turn on this background frame, and I can either right-click it and make it active here, or I can just Alt-click it here to make it active. And what I want to do is I want to using the edit handles, I want to put it about like this, which is about as close as I can get it without the thing snapping to into contact. And I think I can get a little bit closer like that on that side. That looks not too terribly bad. The border, let's make it thicker. Let's make it a border of 2. And down here again, click this guy. That's the button for apply record. Okay, great. Now let's zoom all this back out a little bit so we can see the the layout. And let's go back in here to talk about the how all these frames work. And what we'll do is we'll zoom into this corner right here to see how the frames work. I'll click on this. First thing is that when you do a border, the border, if it's 2 points thick, the border extends from this blue line that delineates the outside of the frame. And if we didn't have any padding, if the padding here was 0, click Update Record. Notice how with padding 0, the contents of the frame extend all the way to the border, all the way to the edge of the frame, so that covers up the border. You'd think the border would be higher above the contents, but it isn't. That's just the way it is, and that may change, it may not change, I don't know. But in the meantime, you want to give it a little bit of padding. So if you give it a padding of 4, that means that's the space between here and here. That's those 4. It's these 4 pixels between the actual. We have to wait for. It's 4 pixels from here to here. If we made the border invisible again, you can see that from here to there is 4 pixels. And if we make that black, you can see the border fills in those outer 2 pixels. The background is the space behind all this, and right now the background is the white background of everything else that we see because the background's transparent. If we make that background red, you can see how that fills in. Let's make the background here a kind of a darker gray, so that'll give a subtle effect to the border, kind of border on border, kind of a dual line border. Alright, let's move all this here like that. I just inadvertently dragged and dropped that so it docked up on the edge of the frame. Let's make that a little bit bigger. And now what we're going to do is with the we're going to select the entire that entire structure. And here I'll click any one of these, and I'll move that right about there, so that that'll do some overlap. And here, edit, select none, and that'll put the legend about where it was in the example where we started. Now I promised we'd add the image as well, so let's dock that for the time being, and let's get here. Here's the Hoover image. Let's take the Hoover image and drag and drop it into here. Go back here to the layers. Let's make that active, and now let's resize the Hoover image. Make that about that size, something like that. This is a Hoover Tower in Stanford University. Everybody knows the Campanile at Stanford, but the Hoover Tower is slightly less well known. I think it's now not in active use, and I'll double click on this so I can pan and zoom within that frame. There. That's not bad. And here in the layers pane, let's make that, I'll click on that. Let's make the Hoover the bottom layer. Move that all the way down to the bottom. I just selected it and control click to select it and moved it down. And last but not least, let's put a border on this frame, and style. Let's make the border. Let's make the border this color right there, kind of a brown color. Let's make it a 2. Let's make the padding 4, and let's make the background black, and that'll result in a composite look, the same as we had here. Zoom in there, and you can see how this border here is the black outer border, and the background gray showing through, and here's the border here, 2 points in that brown color with the background of black showing through. The border on the legend is all black. So that's how all those elements get put together. As you can see, working with legends like this, it's a little bit of tinker time. What you see here for the various frames that are delineated, there's currently no way to turn that off. There will be, I believe, in the next upcoming build, where you can just turn off that to get a WYSIWYG look. Those are just guide frames that just show where guidelines that show where the frames begin and end. If we want to print this stuff, we can click File, Print, using a Microsoft Print to PDF gadget, and let's make this. Let's call this Legend 02, and save. And Microsoft will think away. It's remarkably slow. Actually, is it done already? Could it actually be done? Let's see. Yes, it's done. It's that quick. Let's see what it did. Okay, that's pretty cool. It worked. Actually worked out rapidly. Sometimes it's really slow. Sometimes it's not so slow. And you can see here in the legend that these different frame guidelines that appeared in the layout do not appear. Those little fine gray lines. What it would be cool, I think, is that if this were, if we could turn that off. Let's move this around a little bit so that it fits into the video. I keep forgetting that what I can see on screen is not necessarily what everybody can see on the video. But you can see that there aren't any guidelines here to that. So let's go back in here, and you can see these little guidelines here. It would be nice if there was a button here where you could just toggle it on and off to show guides or not show guides, so that you could get a true WYSIWYG look of what the layout's actually going to look like. That's in progress. Another thing that's in progress is to lock the scale for things like image server maps. So instead of rendering at whatever is the rendering size of the print page, it locks the scale so you see it WYSIWYG exactly the way it looks like here in the preview. So all that's underway. Like I say, if you're the adventurous type and you want to help improve layouts so that and legends so they work exactly the way you want them to work, start tinkering around with this. This video should give you a kickstart. Talk about it on the forum. Send in suggestions to Manifold, and you'll see in the builds in the next week's build and the week after that and the week after that, you'll see there's going to be a steady addition of features, dozens of features that will improve layouts and legends. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from Manifold Land. Well, that was fun. If you want to see more, visit us at www.manifold.net. As always, Manifold delivers the world's most advanced, highest quality spatial products for GIS and DBMS at a low price that you can afford. Once again, that's manifold.net. See you soon.